Dear Madam Acting President, dear fellow members and guests. First of all, some disclosure. I am not going to talk about witchcraft today, as some of you might have thought. So to those who've been waiting for this, I'm sorry to disappoint. This Saturday we'll be celebrating the 70th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. Yet, despite all the fanfare surrounding this event, most of us know surprisingly little about this war. So today I'm going to shed light on some of the most obscure sides of this war, the role of women in defeating Nazism. And one of the most striking stories is how women in the Red Army helped defeat the Germans. They were employed by many armies. They were cooks, nurses, and laundresses. But the Red Army was the only one where women took active role as real soldiers on the battlefield. They were snipers, they were artillery staff, and they were even pilots. So meet the 588th regiment, Air Regiment, which is more famously known as the Night Witches. The story is amazing in every way. This regiment was formed by the famous Soviet aviatrix Marina Raskova. It was under her pressure that Stalin ordered to form 3 air regiments exclusively for women, which were tasked with dropping air bombs on German military positions and infrastructure. And it was her energy and drive that helped to train all the girls to become pilots and navigators and to make sure they were not afraid of the enemy. She was downed and died early on, but the initiative that she started was carried on with a resounding success. Well, what strikes me most about these women, these pilots, is how young they were. Actually, most of them were teenage girls, their age varying from 17 to 26 years. But they were not just some girlies. They had to do multiple missions per flight, and they had to face a wall of enemy fire. When reaching the enemy's positions, they idled their engines and glide towards the target. So the Germans could only hear some whooshing sound that reminded them of a witch's broomstick, hence the nickname, the Night Witches. They were so successful and so frightening for the Germans that every German soldier who downed such a plane would receive the Iron Cross, the highest decoration in the Nazi army. The magnitude of the task was all the more challenging given that they flight and used the old and outdated aircraft, like this you can hear on the slide. It had almost no equipment. It was made mostly of plywood and canvas. So when it was hit by the enemy's fire, it would burn up instantly. So the pilot and navigator on board would have no chance because they had no parachutes. They even had no radio navigation. So they had to use maps and a stopwatch. Yet despite all these shortcomings, they would outmaneuver the speedy German fighters and deliver their bombs straight on target. Yet, despite all what I've just said, they were not like some robots. Even at war, they stayed women. They would curl their hair, they would color their lips with a navigation pencil, they would decorate their planes with flowers. And of course, they would fall in love with male soldiers, mostly pilots, and they would hope to celebrate the victory day and then get married. Yet when the victory day finally came, many of them were no longer alive. I want you to look at these faces and think for a moment about the sacrifices that these teenage girls and women made to make sure that our motherland was liberated. for the foreign invaders. Nadezhda Popova was one of the most famous and renowned night witches. She was the heroine of the Soviet Union, and she flew 852 missions during the war. She was the last living member of the night witches regiment, and she passed away peacefully 2 years ago. So now there are no living members of this war community. So in conclusion, I wanted to do one small thing. When on May the 9th, you can see the planes flying over Moscow streets and the Red Square, I want you to remember these women who fought and died to make sure that we're all free, and say just one phrase: thank you, ladies. Thank you.